Let's kick off. Kia ora and welcome back to our exceptional student series, where today we have Jacqueline Comer, where we're celebrating Jacqueline and people like her who are bold thinkers and generous leaders and also future shapers. They walk through the doors of Academy X and then they leave the world a little better. So welcome, Jacqueline. To our session today. Jacqueline took the leap from writer to technologist. She didn't just change careers. She changed quite a lot. She set out to change the internet, and her Masters of Technological Futures here at Academy X, that opened her eyes around how bias in AI models can silence marginalized voices during elections. So we're going to talk a little bit about that today, and about how she built tools, not just to detect hate, but also the subtle microaggressions that can quietly shape online discourse. Today, she's the CEO of Areto Labs, where she protects public figures and some of the world's biggest sports brands from digital harms. And she and her team are proving that online spaces can be designed to foster belonging, not just police behavior. She arrived at Academy X with a mission and left with tools, networks, and confidence to take it global. So if you've ever wondered whether your idea could become real-world change, Jacqueline's journey is proof that it really can. Jacqueline, you are exceptional, and we're delighted to have you today on this session.
Oh, thank you so much. I don't know if you can tell that I'm blushing a little bit.
This is what we do. We butter you up at the start so you can tell us all the good stuff.
Amazing.
Right?
I like that tactic. Keep it up.
So let's start off just really at the beginning, right? Tell us all how you came to Academy X, what brought you to the Masters of Technological Futures.
Yeah, so it was a pretty straight journey for me, to be honest. I was in a job I didn't like, and I had just officially moved to New Zealand, as in, my partner and daughter and I decided this was going to be home. And I needed to build a network if I was going to be able to find another job or career that kind of fit me more. I also have always been interested in technology. I think the way I've always used technology is trying to skip past having to do certain work. Like, how do I make my day-to-day life easier, especially in the work world. So I've always enjoyed that, but I've also throughout my career always had technology chasing me. So I was a journalist, a sports journalist back in the day. And we all know what happened. I was, print newspaper. I still have some of my clippings. We all know what's happened with newspapers and with journalism. And when I kind of shifted careers a little bit to get away from, okay, well, my paycheck's getting smaller. Then I was in, marketing and creative. And then suddenly there's lots of technology starting to take that over. And even though I was adopting it quickly, I could see I was always running away rather than being in front of it. And so all of that together was like, okay, I need to make a change. And I honestly did a Google search. It's like, okay, what kind, I've always wanted to have a master's. So I was like, okay, what kind of programs are here? And I found that Masters of Technological Futures. I reached out to say, hey, I'm interested. I talked to someone, I think it was Melissa. I don't know if she's there anymore. Had a great chat. And then, within a couple of weeks, it was like, okay, I'm starting. That was it. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. I mean, when I decide something, I do decide something. So, yeah.
But I love that concept of you pick up the phone and you speak to someone called Melissa, when you think of choosing to do your master's and that very first step, and you look at the huge institutions and education institutions around the world, you don't really think, oh, pick up the phone and then it can all start from there. You're like, oh, there must be a complicated form and I need to send in all of, sell my soul and show them everything about my life. But one simple phone call is where you start.
Exactly. And to be honest, just as I said, I always like to use technology to skip ahead and make things easier. That was also the attractive thing, was if I don't have to fill out forms and go through, get transcripts, if I can just talk to someone and I can just here you go, this is what I've done, this is who I am. That was also it was definitely the the easy way. I mean, it wasn't, but it was.
Yeah. Yeah, well, it's a starting point. And when was this, Jacqueline?
So this would have been, I think it would have started, you might know better than me, but October 2019, I think, or
Right.
September 2019. I'm not sure exactly what month, but it was 2019.
Yeah, October. I know now we're taking texts in October, so let's leave it at
Okay,
October.
perfect, perfect.
But October 2019, knowing what we know now, that was a very different. I mean, so much has happened in the years since you signed up. So that would have meant you started your master's in a classroom,
Mhm.
and then at some point moved to online. How was that experience?
Ah, wild. I mean, what an experience. I mean, the in-person stuff was amazing. But because one of the things that I was looking for was like a network and people who are kind of thinking like me, that one of the great things about the program was like oftentimes you can feel isolated. Am I the only one that wants a career change? Am I the only one that's seeing this issue come up? And so being in a room with all these people with completely different backgrounds, but all with the same sort of like, I'm looking for something different. I'm mid-career. Mostly everyone was mid-career, looking for a change, looking to learn something, like giving myself permission to take the time to do this was awesome. And I think like COVID sucked. I think it sucked for everyone. One of the things that we were able to, or I was able to bring into the COVID experience is, first of all, I had something that wasn't like, never mind jobs and, kids at home and stuff. That was one consistent thing. That was quite nice. Plus, we all kind of, because we grew those relationships already, we had each other to kind of like, apart from all the other drama, something else to think about and some other people outside of our immediate worlds that we can connect to and still remind each other that like there is another world out there and
Yes.
we are building towards something else.
Mm. But how powerful I think as well that it's like already within 6 months of starting that you had that sense of community with the other students in your cohort. And that is something that, you never knew you needed it in 6 months in advance. And yet that was something like that other group. It wasn't work, it wasn't family, it was what were a group of strangers 6 months previously, but then became a sounding board and a support group at that time, right? Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So tell me a bit more about your work in exploring this bias around bias in AI. What moments or discovery or well, how was this your thing to start with?
Where did this come from? So I had been working with a group of people in Canada on trying to get more women to run for political office. And because of various things, there's lots of barriers around why women don't want to run for office, and that conversation changed dramatically in 2017, 2018. It went from sort of not being able to raise money or knowing how to raise money or run a campaign to online abuse, and so
Right.
uh, there's nothing like no tools at that time. That was, it was when Twitter was still Twitter, and Twitter was still fun.
Mm-hmm.
That like there's nothing. No one was building anything for that. There was not a lot of discussion. There was not a lot of research around, what's going on, how will online abuse impact our democracy. I think Amnesty International had published one paper about Twitter and women in politics. That was it.
Mm-hmm.
That was all that was around. And we thought, well, we've been doing all this work. How do we not throw out all that work away and still try to get women to run for office? So a bot was created, doing a hackathon that followed all women candidates in an election. And
Mm-hmm.
anytime somebody tweeted at them something toxic, so it was very early AI models. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
early. I mean, AI has been around for a very long time, but for sort of that public domain.
Yeah.
And so if it registered as, toxic based on our levels, it triggered our bot to send something positive.
Right.
So, so that was sort of the early, like, I remember writing some positive, or we called them positivity tweets, for like the
Cute.
first bot, just like trying to fill it with, because there's nothing automated. It was like us filling out these spreadsheets and spreadsheets of nice things to say, and then feeding that into the machine. And, I I've ran the bot in the 2020 election here. So that was September or October 2020. And after the election, I started to look at the data. What were we catching? What were we not? We had run the bot that year in a Canadian was a Canadian federal election, the US presidential election, and the New Zealand election. So there's lots of big elections going on. And when I was analyzing the data, just like how well was the bot working and that sort of thing. And this was like not my project. This was just
Yeah.
another side thing I was doing on top of my master's and a full-time job.
Yeah.
Um, and I realized that actually this model was missing so many things, like things that I thought were clearly microaggressions, were clearly toxic
Mm.
towards these women, but the model wasn't catching them as that. And then so I was like, okay, well, why is that? Like, did we do something wrong? And when I
Yeah.
started to actually analyze where did the data come from, who trained the data, who annotated the data, who said whether something is, toxic or
Aggressive.
not, like who
Yeah.
actually said that, I realized, oh, okay, there's a reason why that it's not catching all this stuff. It's because all the data was pulled from like Twitter and Reddit, which are like male dominated, white male, English speaking dominated. um,
Mm.
that the people it was a Google product, the people at Google who were annotating the data were mostly white men. uh,
Mm-hmm.
the people training to make sure that like your confusion matrices were right,
Yeah.
that they were also white men of
Yeah.
a certain age. And so it was like, oh, okay, well, it's no wonder it's missing all of this stuff. It's because it's baked in every level of the system. So it was at that point that someone in my cohort, because I was like, coming to class, God, this is ridiculous. How did it miss all this stuff? And this is why. And they said to me, like, why is this not your master's project? I'm like,
Yeah.
why is this? Why is this not my master's project? So then
Wow.
I did make it my project, and then that gave me time to really like dig in, really analyze why, and then try to build a model that could detect microaggressions, which I learned after is like we did it. It was very emo, but we did it.
Yeah. Yeah.
But what I learned was that that was actually quite revolutionary. Who knew? I'm not a, data scientist. I'm not a machine learning scientist, but I was able to work with someone and get it done because you're training a model on noise rather than taking out the noise. So it was like quite
Yeah.
a big thing, but it was like we have a problem. We need to solve it.
Yeah.
Figured it out.
Well, it blows my mind that this isn't what you were planning to do as part of your like you saw this as obviously something very separate.
Yes,
And we do a lot of our students come here and they say, well, I'd like to do the masters, but I don't know what my project is. And it's actually your situation is you had some other idea, but it was your colleague who said, or you're someone in your cohort who said, your passion is actually in what you're coming in and grumbling about every day. Like
exactly.
embrace your passion rather than look at something else.
Absolutely. And to be honest, like when I started, I had absolutely no idea what I wanted. I had no plans. I had none, zero.
Yeah.
I came up with projects. I had my first project was um, like having an app that you could trade your garden vegetables. Like if
Yeah.
like aphids got to your lettuce, but you want to make a salad.
Yeah.
Like who in your neighborhood can you trade your tomatoes with? That was my first plan. Uh,
Hmm.
my next plan was boat Uber. And this
Okay.
was all related to my day to day. It was like, oh, look, the aphids got to my lettuce. And then, oh,
Yeah.
maybe that can be a project. And then it was, I'm tired of being stuck in traffic on the bridge. Why can't I just like hop in a Zodiac and go
Yeah.
across? But I don't want to
Yeah.
have to buy one or whatever. So they were all kind of just related to my life, just trying to figure out, doing
Mm.
these projects, trying to figure it out. And so I think if there is anyone who's thinking, I have no idea, like it, because of all the work that you go through, all the different projects, the different things that you are exposed to, even your classmates as well, you're able to start to find that path. And if you don't find it with enough conversations with people, they can find it for you.
they find it for you, and that's how they hold up the mirror, right? Like we often think, oh, that'll be like a lecturer or a teacher or somebody in a higher authority, but it's, I think, just having that sense, that community around you, like you say, of people who were also looking to change, mid-career, they were hungry for something to be different in their lives, like realizing some dreams, or just even pushing themselves outside their comfort zone. And when you get enough of those people together, I think that's when the real sparks start to be ignited. And you think, what would have, in another world, what things could I have lined up deliberately to reach the same outcome? It was probably impossible, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the word you used is like deliberate. And I think that was I had a career that was not deliberate. My very first job was deliberate. I always wanted to not have to pay to go to ice hockey games anymore. That was this is what happens when you give a 17-year-old the power to make a decision for the rest of your life. Like, it's not very, I was not ready. But that meant being a sports journalist. And that was the only deliberate decision I made until I was 40, and decided I need to make a change. Like, I need
Yeah,
to actually like deliberately take the time out to think
yeah.
and like just find what that is. And I don't think never mind. I don't think I know that I wouldn't be doing this today had I not like drawn a line in the sand and said out loud to enough people. So then I had to do it, that like I need to make a change, and I need to like give myself the time and the grace to do it.
Yeah, and the support,
Yeah.
because I think sometimes I think, oh, if I have a weekend to myself, I might come up with that thing. And then at the end of the weekend, I go, no, I need other people. Like sometimes there's some things that you can come up with by yourself, but other times it is a sounding board piece, and it's going through that process of, well, if not this, then what? And other people bring so much more to it. You said there, if I I wouldn't be doing this. So tell me what this is that you're doing today.
So I help run I'm going to say startup, though we're hoping to change that to scale up later this year or early next year. And we, as you said, we're on a mission to make the online world more positive and inclusive. And we do that by helping organizations, big sports brands, individuals, remove digital harms from their social media accounts. We use because we've been in the AI space for so long and we've got a lot of data, we've been working on fine tuning our models to be able to catch all sorts of things. Like, I think right now our accuracy, and this is funny because I would never be talking like this. I said confusion matrices before, and now I'm talking about accuracy of our models, like 98.7%, which is pretty amazing for the abuse that we remove. But just making sure that like not only the people who are having to moderate channels, not only protecting them and their mental health with having to like do that work and read that stuff, but also the digital communities around for big sports brands, that have, for example, they have a Pride night. You can imagine what that brings in.
Yes.
So they do those nights not for funsies, but because they want to make sure that people feel welcome in their communities and to grow their fan base. But if you've got your social media channels are full of horrible, horrible things, those people are either not going to participate, not feel like they belong. And really, like, that's for the companies we work with, we can talk about that's a lot of lost revenue because those people are too afraid to engage, too afraid to feel comfortable within and so you've spent all this money on this great campaign, and with 10 horrible, and it's never 10, it's thousands of horrible messages, like, you
Wow.
just lost them forever. Yeah.
Wow, it is amazing. Like the numbers that you're mentioning, like for that to be removed is considerable, about how much, the keyboard warrior is very much alive in all different types of communities. It's not just, your local physical village community page on Facebook, that this is actually, communities where, yes, there's a commercial aspect to it because you wanted people to be like your fan base, right? Like back in the day when we didn't have online, you'd have magazine subscriptions, and it would come every month, and you'd be one of the fans, and they'd get a treat or you'd get some discount offers. but you were really didn't have that much interaction with other members of the community unless you had annual events or monthly meetups or things like that. But the online space really, it is that safety, right? And people, how can they belong if they don't feel safe or seen or protected, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah. How can they engage? Like,
Yeah.
there's one thing that we've learned, and it's one of those like happy accidents. I mean, it made sense after, but what we've learned is that once you take away the bad stuff,
Mm.
engagement goes up. It doesn't decrease. Like people like because people feel safer to engage, they don't feel like, oh, if I say this, people are going to jump on and be really angry or whatever.
Yeah.
That people like you do end up growing your community, which is like very heartening because I mean, some of the stuff that we read, I was just looking at some things this morning. It did make me laugh, just like
Yeah.
how creative some people can be. Um, but without seeing that stuff, you're free to engage. Like you don't feel like you can't. Yeah.
And what does it, I mean, I'm picturing, forums and chat spaces online that it's kind of, people can disagree, but it's respectful and that there's, people's opinions are allowed. People are allowed to have their opinions and that. So, but what does it look like from your world in terms of how does it work behind the scenes? Is there like a filter and things go through it or, from a technical perspective, what does it look like in practice?
Yep. I'm not going to tell you how the sausage is made completely.
No,
But
no.
I can tell you, so we connect into all of our users' social media accounts.
Mhm.
So we hook up directly to the APIs of all of the social media. And then as soon as a comment hits the server, we grab it and
Mhm.
it goes through a whole series of filters. So the first one it goes through is a it's our not safe for work
Yep.
detector,
Yep.
which there's a lot of spam that happens these days that has like they just post one word, but the profile picture is butts or boobs is
Yeah.
what it
Yeah.
is. So that's the first filter it goes through. If it's one word and if it has, with our image detector, if it's butts or boobs, we can just get rid of that before it even goes through the rest of the system. And then it goes through a series of other different models that we have looking for different things. And then if it finds something that has pirated content or is like from a bot, so like any sort of scams or spam, um, it just deletes it automatically. So,
Mhm.
and this is all within like 3 seconds maximum. Like gets it, it's gone, so no one sees it. And if it's abuse, depending on the threshold that you've set for your own community. So we don't tell you like what
Yep.
is bad. You tell us what is
Yeah.
bad. And then that's where it's set. And if it hits that threshold, then the system automatically hides that comment.
Mm.
We hide instead of delete for like abusive content for a couple of reasons. The first one is you can't undo a delete, but you can undo a hide. So if we have a false positive, which again, like we don't have any, but they do, we crunch millions and millions of comments every year. So some will come through. You can easily just go onto your dashboard and undo it. But the other reason is if you hide instead of delete, like a hide doesn't trigger anything for the person who posted it. So if you delete something, the person can see that it's not there anymore, which can cause pile-ons. We've seen that before where like they either make new accounts or they tell all their friends and then everyone's harassing you.
Okay.
Instead, they have absolutely no idea. They can still see it on their
Mhm.
account, but no one else can. It doesn't exist. Uh,
Right.
so that's how like the basics work. We also have a muting function where people know what accounts, like for account uh, content directors and stuff, they know like,
Mm.
you know,
Yeah.
we know that during this, if I talk about this, these 5 accounts are gonna like rah, rah, rah. So there's
Yeah.
also you can just mute them,
Yeah.
give them a timeout until you're ready to unmute them. And it's really like what we're doing is just giving our users the control. Like you
Yeah.
decide what you don't want to see. It's, just like deciding what envelope you do or don't want to open, what store you do or don't want to go to. Like you can decide what kind of like comments you want to see within your community.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. Wow. I don't know if you expected to end up this where you are today when you walked in the doors of Academy X, Jacqueline. It is great to hear, like here, and this is what I love about talking to any of our alumni, is that you hear about the wonderful places that they are today and where they're affecting change. We don't go looking for change makers, but somehow they manage to find their way to us and then continue to make change when they leave. And the vision and mission for Redder Labs, I love it. It's so admirable, and as we hear more about AI, I can see it being even more prevalent. And it's just like, thank you for doing this when you did it, because you are, I'm obviously from what you've told me today, just protecting so many people who don't even realize that this is happening behind the scenes. And that's the beauty of it, right? They shouldn't need to know what they see in the communities in these online areas, that they get a sense of belonging because they do feel safe and seen, and that they can speak up. And we're nearing the end of our conversation, Jacqueline, but I am curious, how do you balance the mission and vision and great aspirations for a Redo Lab with the realities of the day-to-day running running a business? I know it's not easy, and I've heard a lot of founders like yourself talk about, the different hats and all of the things that you didn't know. But how have you been finding it?
Yeah, I mean, one quick anecdote. One of the classes that we had at Tech Futures, or it was Tech Futures, now Academy X, was we had an accountant and a lawyer come in to talk to us about accounting and the legal things around, technology with, if you had a startup, that sort of thing. And I remember saying to my friend in the class, being like, oh, okay, I'm just going to focus on other things. Like, I will never work on it. This is not me, whatever. And so and then there was one around fundraising. What's a pre-seed, a seed, a series A, series B. And I was like, I don't need to listen to this class either. Whoopsies. Yes, I did. I was a writer from the beginning of my career. I've obviously done other things, and I've managed people, I've had budgets, I've done bits and pieces, but I've never had a dream to run a business. I never had a goal to run a business. If at the time, if I didn't have to use a spreadsheet, that would be great. And now, like, daily, I'm in spreadsheets and accounting platforms and thinking about investors and thinking about cash flow and thinking about finance projections and capitalizing our assets, and things that I had never, ever, ever, ever thought that I would be talking about, thinking about, or caring about. I found that a lot of that is fun. And then balancing all of that with, okay, we know why we're doing this, and we've got all of our customers that we're trying to, make sure that we're helping them with their goals. And then every day I'm, this hat, this hat, this hat, this hat, just trying to keep all of that balanced. It's not perfect. It is tricky, but I guess one of the things about Areto is that we're all so clear on our vision and mission. Like, we know what we're trying to do, and it doesn't matter how we do it. If we're doing it, we're doing it. And so, like, everything kind of goes back to that, but we don't have to talk about that because that is the reason why we're all there. So, like, sometimes we do, in conversations with customers, we want this feature built, can we have this? Can we have that? And sometimes it has absolutely nothing to do with our mission directly. It's not, removing horrible stuff from the internet. But if we can't sell it to people because they need this other thing, then we don't have a business either. And so there is a lot of, like, negotiation and trying to think about, from a product perspective, like, can we sell it? Are we going to stay afloat with this? And then, how is it away from our mission, or does it just help us sell the product? And so there's lots of negotiations, both, like, outward and then inner, about, what does this mean? Is this right? Yeah.
Yeah.
But there's no right answer, and we're still going, which
Yes, indeed.
Yeah.
And I think that's the reality of the life of a founder or a startup becoming a scale up. I'm looking forward to touching base and finding out that you've changed your terminology.
Okay, awesome. Me too.
Jacqueline, your journey, it really shows me what happens when courage meets curiosity and when you invest that hard work to turn an idea into action. We've plenty of ideas here at Academy X. There's no shortage among our staff and our students. And it is amazing to hear these stories of when one of those ideas has really transformed into action and is now creating value for global companies to protect their online communities. So kia kaha, and well done on the work that you've done. You've proven that research and a project that has been prompted by a colleague, not necessarily a middle of the night moment, but it's really prompted that your research can change the world. Jacqueline, you are truly exceptional, and thank you very much for your time today.